So hi guys, this is more of an off-the-cuff type of topic video I want to talk about, and it doesn't have to do with art. Doesn't have to do with art at all. I need to emphasize that. The art I'll have in the background is probably, though, going to be a collab that I did with Pastel, because I've got a few of those lying around. But in lieu of the holidays, and I know this might be weird because I believe this is the week of Christmas, or Christmas just passed when this one video goes up. But I think it's important we talk about it because so as the title might say, I feel like I need to explain a couple of things first before I dive right into why I am the way I am and I'm opinion the way I am. Now, if you guys are you're very frequent to my channel, you know that I base almost all of my opinions, my topics, and my things from personal experiences, my friends' experiences, my own research, and the like. And I've seemed to notice more and more that there seems to be this rift in a generational gap. And oh no, Michi, don't be one of those people. Don't be talking about. This is a topic that I literally don't see anyone talk about. Okay? And it's not, millennials being lazy or baby boomers being dicks. It's not, about everyone being broke all the time or old people being rich all the time. It's not one of those videos. It's definitely not. And it is that here, let me move my microphone. Sorry about that. My laptop fan decided to kick on out of nowhere. It's really late also, so if I sound a little different, a little like toned down, it's really late for me doing the audio. And it's that I see more and more parents treating their kids like servants than like their kids. And there seems to be this thing, and this is where I'm talking about. I have to explain. A broken record. It's like 2 minutes. So I feel that everyone should help out. Everyone should pull their weight. This is something I was raised in and I believed in. I was raised in a household where if you didn't eat dinner made, you didn't have to do the dishes. Example would be, let's say my mom decided to make a dinner that maybe I wasn't feeling well or I didn't really have, no big deal. If I didn't eat that dinner, I was not expected to do the dishes. I was then expected to fend for myself in a sense and make my own meal. My parents took the time and the energy to make this meal, and if we didn't want to eat it, well, we didn't have to clean up after it, but they weren't going to make us something completely different. And this is when I was older. This wasn't when I was like a little kid, and you're a little kid and you're like, I want mac and cheese, I want ice cream. And then they're like, fine, kid, you ain't gonna eat, you fucking not eating then. No, it wasn't like that. It wasn't like that at all, when I was 13, I learned how to cook, like, properly, I should say. I cooked, I was cooking here and there. Same with doing things like my laundry, which I'm still pretty bad at. But, I started being very independent. And my brothers, not so much, but they've gotten better over the years. And, I see this thing where there seems to be this weird shift now. And I see it a lot more in people who live at home or live with their parents still. Oh, well, they should just, not be a loser and get the fuck out of their house. You don't know people's situations. Perfect example. Cody and I we are 26 years old and we just now got our first place because of being in student loan debt and other debt and having to, make finally enough to be able to afford a 1-bedroom apartment. It took us years to do that, especially where I live, because we live in California, which is one of the most expensive states in the country. And, there are differences here. And yes, to some people, we could have moved out sooner. This is very, very true. But with what we were making at the time, we would have had to rent out, if we could even find one, a probably a small house with way too many people to fit in that house. I've seen it very, very common where you will have 8 to 10 people living in a 4-bedroom house around here. In fact, some of my cousins who are very successful, I believe they still do that. I don't know if they do anymore, but they did for a very long time where they did that, where like they were like, well, I wanted a house, so we just rented with a bunch of people, and we all shared rooms, kind of like college and dorms and stuff. And if that's the lifestyle you want, that's fine. Or you see it with kids who are like, they're going to college, but they're staying home when they go to college and that sort of thing. Or, just again, maybe they're working or they're trying to do this and they don't make enough to live on their own. This is a very big thing that is happening still. And it's not from lack of trying. Yes, this is very true. What I'm about to say, there are lazy people out there who just don't want to get a job. Or there are people out there who are fine working 4 or 5 hours a week and then wonder why they don't have money. It's one of those things. Not everyone, but some people. And I'm seeing this, like I said, like this shift where I started noticing it with one of my friends specifically, and I'm going to rename them for their own safety and everything. But we're going to call this friend Penn. So Penn was actually in a situation like myself with Cody where, we had to move in with our partner's family. And so Penn moved in with her partner's family, and everything was going great. Everything was fine. Penn was helping out around the house, again, because that's how we were raised, And especially, I was raised in a sense where, like, if you didn't pay rent or food or anything and you were an adult and you could, keyword here is could, then you help out a lot more. You know what I mean? If you're not paying rent and you're not doing much, you help out more. You clean more, you offer to do more because you're living in this house. And Penn did that. Penn didn't complain. Penn did a lot of things. But then Penn started working and started going to school. And keep in mind, Penn paid for her own school and, paid for her own gas to go to work and all those other things. And Penn didn't rely on a lot of people. And then Penn started not exactly paying rent, but paying other things, paying, again, in the situation where we were in. And it got to a point where Penn was then expected to do all the things Penn had been doing before when Penn didn't have a job and wasn't going to school. But now, here's the part that would always make me and my friends mad, as well as Penn. It would make her very upset, is this was not an empty house. This was a lot of people living at this house at one point, and, a lot of them were blood family, and the relatives that Penn was living with didn't ask the blood family to do these things, when the blood family, in most cases, not all, weren't doing much with their lives at the time. Very important. So it's one of those things where I remember asking Penn, I'm like, well, wait, there's a person who's living in that house who doesn't have a job, who doesn't go to school, so they're just dicking around for 6 months. Why isn't, we'll name them Bottle. Why isn't Bottle helping you out? You have work. You have to go to school. And a lot of people in that household didn't work and didn't go to school. They had money from other means. And so, it was one of those things where it's like, okay, there's no excuse here now because they're home all the time. They don't work, don't go to school. From what I know, they didn't have many hobbies besides going out like one day a week. They didn't have a lot of, liberties and responsibilities they had to attend to. But it was up to Penn. And if Penn didn't do it, nobody would do it. And they blame Penn, even though Penn was going to school and working. And Penn's partner was also going to school and working, the family member. But the family member never got asked to do stuff. In fact, I remember the family member for the longest time wouldn't do anything. And besides, go to work and school, which is fine. But see, there's something here that never made sense to me. Now, when Cody and I were living with my parents, before we moved in with my in-laws, when our finances, took a kamikaze, my parents had asked us, at first we didn't pay rent. This is very true. We didn't pay rent at first. But shortly after Cody moved in, my parents were like, oh, okay, you guys need to pay for your own food. We can't afford to feed you two. Because at the time, my parents were also paying to feed my grandmother and taking care of my uncle and taking care of my brothers as well as themselves. So kind of made sense. That's 2 extra mouths to feed. And at the time, we both had jobs. And so we were like, no, that makes sense. We'll pay for our own food. And my parents, they never really, they asked us to like do things like, hey, can you clean the bathroom? We'd clean the bathroom. Like whenever they'd ask, we would do it. It would never be a thing. And my parents didn't really care. If we didn't do our laundry, we were fucking adults. So it's like, if you stank, you stank. I'm not doing it anymore. And I think that's fine. Same with like, keeping your room clean and making your bed and all that other stuff. It was one of those like, my parents were very much like, it's your shit. We don't care. No one goes upstairs. So it's not like you're like, being shameful to the family or anything. And then we shipped to my in-laws when we were living with my in-laws, and everything was like that at first, like living with my family, where everything was fine and normal. And then they were like, oh, we need to start paying rent. We're like, okay. And then we started paying rent. And then once we were paying rent, we never bitched about the rent. We paid the rent. Um, the same things applied. And I remember talking to them, and I'm like, well, we're paying rent now. I also have a job. I'm not just dicking around all day. I have deadlines to meet. I have clients I have to get back to. I have, just normal networking work to do, which is also why, my list has been just terrible this year, is because it's been a terrible year. But I'm not shifting blame here. I'm just saying, because it got to the point where being expected to do something is not even a right word for what I'm trying to say here. It was demanded, where we would be openly belittled, and we would be, beaten down and broken down, and it was something that Penn and I related to, and it was really messed up, how it was one of those like, oh yeah, Penn at one time was going to school full time and working technically 3 jobs. I was doing that once too, except I wasn't going to school full time. I was part time with like 2 technical part time jobs and then 1 third job that I did like on call, but it was 3 jobs. This wasn't Penn. Penn actually had like 3 jobs where she was always gone, always doing this, and their house became a mess. And it became a mess because the people who were living there just decided to stop doing stuff because Penn wasn't doing it. And Penn was getting to a point where it's like, no, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going to school to get out of here. What are you going to do when I move out? One of those things. What are you going to do when me and my partner leave? Because now it's gotten to a point where if I don't do the dishes don't get done. If I don't clean the bathroom doesn't get clean. If I don't do your laundry, it doesn't get done. And I should emphasize, too, these people don't have physical or mental disabilities that are forcing them to not do these things, because that is very important. I probably should have explained that in the beginning. A lot of these people who have this very entitled mindset is how it seems to me. And I can already see well, if you're living under their roof, rent-free, but here's the thing. If you don't make enough to move out, and you pay for things like rent, it should still count in my book. My parents shouldn't be that rare. And it isn't just Penn. I've seen it with a lot of other friends. I have this other friend who also lives in a full house. And I would say about probably 10 people live in this house, I think, at any given time. 10 people live in this house. And for this friend, I'll call her Quill. Because we're going with Penn and Quill at this point. So, and Quill also works and doesn't go to school, but she works, and she works full time, and she lives in a house full of people where Quill is also in a situation where it's like, oh, I'm not technically related. I'm I'm the girlfriend, the boyfriend, the whatever, and I'm living here, but I do pay rent, and I do pay all my own bills. And they don't support me in any way. Because I have a couple of other friends who it's not like that, where it's like, they can't really afford rent, and the people actually take care of them, and then things are more obviously shifted in that sense. If they're still supporting you, you should support them. If Cody and I were in a situation where we didn't have to pay any bills, and we were living somewhere rent-free, food-free, everything free, and just our own personal bills to pay, then, yeah, asking us to do the dishes. We would do the dishes even if we didn't cook for it, If you wanted to do the laundry, we do the laundry. It's one of those things because it's like you are supporting us, so we're going to give back. It's a nice 50-50, and it's a respect thing. And that's what I think the big thing is here is there's no respect in it because they feel so entitled to do this. And growing up in a place where I wasn't raised in that lifestyle. My parents were never like that, but I was thrust into that lifestyle by other people. And it seems to be a generational thing. And here's the kicker though, it doesn't have to be that you're living there either. You could live close by, but you could be blah blah blah. Where they have this need of wanting to control you, that their time is so important, but yours, it doesn't matter because they gave birth to you, or they adopted you, or they fathered you, or or they seeded you, if you don't, if you however you want to call it, or they took you in, and it's one of those things where, yes, you should show respect if respect is given, but respect isn't something that you just quaff in. You just have. You have to earn respect. You have to earn it, and I feel like it's a thing now where we see it, where these people become so codependent on being, in a way, taken care of. And I think back and I'm like, and again, in these cases where, disabilities and mental issues are not in the cards. I'm not throwing those out there. Where it's just this sudden this shift where, and I keep using shift because I can't think of any other word for it, but you see it where, it's like, oh, well, it's my time to rest. I've done all this, and it's like, yeah, but when they eventually leave, which is what you want, isn't it? Don't you want these people to be successful and be on their own and make something of themselves and not have to rely on you? Or is that what they want? Do they need to feel relied on? But then it's like, you get to the point where you're no longer relying on them. You are supporting them and not getting compensation for it. In these situations with my friends, they pay rent. They pay their own bills. They pay their own school. They're just living there because they can't afford to live on their own. Or they have a lot of debt from school, or they have other issues. Sometimes I have a friend who has a lot of medical issues, and she's always had medical issues. And so for her, it's really hard for her to work, and it's hard for her to go to school. But she still does it to try, and it's something that always inspires me, because she's like, I don't want to be like one of those people. I want to be able to do the dishes. I want to be able to do my own laundry. Because you shouldn't expect it on your kids. Again, you should teach kids chores. You should teach your kid responsibilities. You should teach your kid respect. Whenever I went to people's houses, even people's houses that they say I pretty much live at, that I used to go to all the time, I still ask, oh, can I have a drink of water? Oh, please, thank you, blah, 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 blah. That's how I was raised. You're a very grateful person. I've never liked the idea of someone coming in, because I remember witnessing this once, of back in high school. One of my brother's friends, never met this kid. He comes into our house, kid again, I never met, doesn't introduce himself. He just walks right past me, opens our fridge and starts just eating out of our fridge. And I remember being like, what the fuck? And then I talked to my brother. My brother's like, oh, it's a friend of mine. And I'm like, well, I never met him. I wasn't told they were coming. It's like, yeah, and that happens a lot too. And that's not respectful either. But you see these people who have respect, but then they'll ask for something. A good example is this. This actually happened to me once. I remember I had a commissioner prepay for a live stream commission slot. Big reason why I don't do this anymore is because of this incident. Now that I've lived on my own, I can do more, but I'm not open right now, so please don't ask. Sorry, a lot of people ask, but those will be coming back in the near-ish future. Is I let these people know, I'm like, hey, I need to have this day off because I have a prepaid commission slot. And they just lost it and screamed in my face and told me how, I live in their house and they are not expected to bend over backwards for my schedule, which I never expected. I just told them in advance, and it was before this moment. I told them, I'm like, hey, can't do anything today. Can't do errands. Can't do this. I have to do work that I've been paid for in advance to do. And And it was a power move, and I faltered because at the time I'm like, where the fuck am I gonna go? I have nowhere else to go at the time. I had nowhere else to live. What was gonna happen if I fought this? I wasn't gonna win, and it just bothers me to the core that I'm seeing it more and more, and it's making people scared to live on their own, but in the opposite, when they live on their own. And this isn't with me, so don't think of it wrong. But I had a friend who was in the same situation as us. They moved out before we did. They moved out a long time ago. And they almost same situation as us, had to take care of everything, was expected this and that, and I never got a thank you, never got a wow, we're so grateful, never got anything. Because you lived on their roof. That's just how it was supposed to be. That when they moved out and they had their own place and they could afford it, but they kept the place a pigsty on purpose. They wouldn't clean up. They wouldn't do anything because they're like, I can finally do whatever the fuck I want now. And I remember it got to a point where I was talking to him. I'm like, do you like living like this? And it's like, no, but I don't want to do it because I had to do it for somebody else for so long. Someone else can do it. I'm like, who? Neither of you guys do it. So, and there's times I don't want to do the dishes. I don't want to do the laundry. I don't want to do bills and, basic stuff. I don't want to sweep. I don't want to clean. But you kind of have to. And especially when it's your own stuff, it's one thing. But with these people, it baffles me because I'm like, you used to do it on your own. And again, there was no like switch. That was just like, oh, well, I'll just stop. There wasn't a actual physical reason why they couldn't do these things. Especially for the people who didn't really work. 'Cause that's what I also see is that the people who either don't work or don't work a lot, when they're doing these sorts of things. And obviously when someone has a full day of work, like my husband, he tends to work 12-hour days. And when he comes home, if I've made him dinner, even though it's a 12-hour day, he does the dishes. I do everything else. I cook, I clean, I do my best to keep things organized, I do his laundry, because I'm here. But he also knows that I have work to do, and he respects me for that, and it's a thing we share. Same thing when it's like, I remember I asked him once, because I was having a really bad day, and I was like, can you please cook? I can't cook. I'll do the dishes. And it wasn't even an argument, nothing. Cody did it, and it was fine, did the dishes, everything was good. Same with laundry. A good example is tonight. Cody, he asked me to do his laundry, and I really wasn't feeling too well, so I laid down. And he was like, oh, okay, no big deal, I'll do it. And so he did it. And then I woke up, and, I'm having sleeping issues, and this whole thought's coming in my head. But these people in these situations are never compensated for. I never was. And it beats you down, and it breaks you, and it makes you just so, resentful. There's no other way to say it. You're resentful of the people who are forcing this on you. And again, it's not, and I have to keep repeating it to get it clear, it's not the people who, you're actually helping out because they need help. It's one of those, you're expected to. And then it's one of those things where it's most of the people who are in these things, they were never expected to do that. I hear their stories of their childhoods, and they never did anything like that. Just the very basic stuff. And then they wonder why, when their kids do get out, they don't visit, and they don't talk much, and they don't do this and that. And then it gets to a point where it's like they guilt trip you, because that's happened to us, is we'll get calls sometimes where it's like, oh yeah, I need you to do this and this, that. And then it's like, oh, well, I can't, I can't, I know I'm busy, or I have to work, or I live far away now. And then it's like, oh yeah, I'll just pay someone to do it then, because I really want to get done. It's like, wow, so you would pay someone to do it, but you're asking me first because I'm family, when never got a thank you, never got a grateful, never got anything. And it sounds like I'm spiteful about it, but I am. Because I see these people treating their kids literally like maids. And then the kids push down when they don't do it, when they have valid reason to. Now, let me emphasize. If you are one of those people who you don't go to school, you don't work, You don't have a reason for those things, as in you don't have a, physical or mental disability or anxiety issues or depression. You literally don't have a reason. You don't have a reason besides that you're lazy. And that's a word that people don't like hearing. And hey, there was a time when I was extremely lazy too, and it's a part of life. There are people who are like that. Then you need to stop being lazy. You need to start doing things to change your life. And obviously, it's going to be hard, and it's going to take a while. But then when you actually start improving and you start showing them that you're changing and you're doing this and you're being on your own and you're being adults, you're going to school, you're getting a job, you're getting in debt. You're not having them get in debt. You're getting in debt to go to school to better yourself, to get a job, or vice versa. You're learning a skill, you're doing this, you're doing things, and you're contributing more. It's one of those like, oh, now that I have a job, I can start paying rent. I can help out around here. But then when that happens, then it needs to shift back to how it used to be. Again, if there's not a reason, If you're now paying rent and doing all this and taking care of yourself and doing all these things, and the other person isn't, then yes, you still should, if you're living in their house, be respectful and be like, okay, on this day I'll do laundry, on this day I'll cook, on this day I'll clean, on this day I'll drive you places. That's another big one, is it's having to take them places when they are all willing to drive and they won't pay you gas. They expect you to pay for your own gas, driving them around, and they don't compensate you in any way. Then no, there needs to be a 50-50 shift. It doesn't matter that they're your relative or your landlord or whatever, you're living under their roof, friend's parent, literally whatever. Because how can you expect them to not want and or expect the same? And then it puts these expectations on other people. Back to my friend Penn. My friend Penn told her partner point blank, you are never doing that to me, because if you do that to me when we eventually do move out, I'm leaving you. And she meant it. I've had other friends have to do that too, where they have to sit strict, like, you are not allowed to become that. It's not fair. Now, something else I've always said, let's say you're a stay-at-home mom or a stay-at-home dad or a stay-at-home parent, if you don't like those labels. Or you're a caregiver, as in, you are actually helping a relative. There was a time when my mother was taking care of my grandmother, because she couldn't afford a full-time caregiver. Now, my parents are very, very much super people, and they worked on top of that, but there are a lot of people who can't do that. They don't get that luxury. They have to help them. Then that's different, because you, have to help them. They are mentally and physically unable to help themselves. A lot of this just boils down to people wanting to be lazy and wanting to be taken care of. And then they get set in this lifestyle, and then when the lifestyle changes, they get salty about it. And it bothers me, because I see it more and more, and I see people complaining about it on Twitter, and no one's talking about it. And that's what I like about my videos like this. And I like talking to you guys, is I like reading your responses, and I like starting, dialogues and seeing different opinions on it and seeing things and how I want it to change, because this is gonna end up being, there was a saying, and it's so terrible, but it was, back in the day, it was throwing someone in a home and pretending they don't exist anymore. And it's one of those things where it's like, well, if you're putting me through this, that kind of seems like a good option, because why would I want to take care of you more when I wasn't respected when I was doing it in the first place? Or the fact that my time and my energy and just me as a person didn't matter, wasn't respected. Penn wasn't respected. Will wasn't respected. Excuse me. But, late night thoughts and rambles, just wondering if anyone else agrees with me that this needs to stop. And not in the, be a douchebag way. Like I said at the very start, I do believe in respect, but respect has to be 50-50. Can't be 50-30. And that's not even proper math. What the hell, Michelle? You know what I mean. It can't be 60-40. That's probably what I was going for, was 60-40. It needs to be 50-50. If you can only help out here and there, that's fine. But in the times you help out, then they need to pick up the slack. Vice versa. Okay, I've rambled on enough. I feel like I've gone on a million tangents with this topic. But as always, guys, I will. See you next time. Bye.